Hello and welcome to the MetaMorphosis podcast. I'm your host, Milan Kostadinović. And before I start this and before this podcast goes deeper, I want you to know that whatever you hear in this podcast, in this episode, explore and investigate for yourselves. Discover the truthfulness or the untruthfulness of it on your own. And explore for yourself what truth is, essentially. Because all I'm doing is providing information, things I consider facts. But in order to occupy the same reality, we need to see what facts are together. And that is exactly what I aim on doing. What I wish to speak about is a very complex issue today, and is the nature of life and death. Namely, being afraid of death and allowing it to permeate so many aspects of our lives, allowing it to guide our actions, motivated by fears and fear instead of the genuine desire to live. We invent all kinds of mechanisms to protect ourselves, so to say, to permeate life, to perpetuate it, to make it last longer than it does. In doing so, we embrace things that we create in our own minds, not the mortality and the mortals as we are. We invent all kinds of bypassing strategies, practices. We listen to gurus. We repeat religious doctrines, dogmas, quotes, self-motivation, motivation from other people, but we rarely get into the exploration of what our own life is for us and ourselves. And that is in a way, the only thing we're here to do. And we all have, ironically, our own definition of why we are here. Quantum physics made sure that individual truth is penultimate and quintessential. Yet, as humanity, we share one mind, and that is the human mind, and we need to see what is truth and what is fact within that mind, and to eliminate the division that permeates and perpetuates our suffering. We cannot know what our life is about if we hear about our life from someone else. There are people, of course, to whom we refer to as mirrors, to whom we refer to as individuals that can reflect our being and whatnot. However, it is only us who can get to know ourselves truly and fully. And we need to be able to explore our own experience for ourselves. Because we read all these books, we listen to all kinds of new, old gurus and guides and teachers, and we use our own experience to relate to what we've heard from them. If I hear a quote that I relate to, then I repeat that as a mantra and I guide my life accordingly. I believe that and I repeat it in hopes that it will improve my life and my well-being. The truth of the matter is that I have no idea what exactly this person meant when he or she said this. All I know is that I've seen something and that I can, as I like to say to myself, relate to it. And then I repeat it, and then I make it the fundamental focus of my life. And then I say to myself, this is how I'm going to live my life. And in doing so, I control life. I direct life, and in doing so, I do not live because I live for an outcome. And it is very ironic saying this because we do need orientation and focus and direction. And at the same time, we should not succumb to being slaves of our own ambitions, because all our ambitions are not situated in the present moment, which is when and where we can actually feel alive. We strive towards, say, excellence, abundance, wealth, and we do not examine if we have that which we seek in this very moment, where we are now. Such a funny thing, actually, to be so occupied with the future all the time, constantly, to think about something inevitable, such as, for example, death, and to, in so many attempts, perpetuate life. And of course, this is no indication of any morbid trail of thought. It is simply that one can only explore life if he wants to, and lose himself in his own life, and discover what his life is about, to draw his own map, and to truly get to know oneself through one's own experience, through one's own emotions. I recently heard a man speak about nonviolent communication, and I love the concept of it. I genuinely admire the concept of nonviolent communication. And at the same time, nonviolence implies violence, because one must use a certain amount of violence to suppress the violence that communication would express. Because if one feels violence, then one is violence. Not saying violence is good, not saying violence is or isn't something. Simply recognizing that a man is violence, a man is anger. Not naming it, labeling it, comparing it, enhancing it, or suppressing it. The simple acknowledgement of one's nature is extremely liberating to the mind, to the body. The understanding of I am violent. We think of progress in terms of action and movement. And we live our lives like that. Again, there is nothing wrong with that. But we believe that we need experience to change. And in a way we do. If we think that the passage of time, that time is the milestone of our progress and development, and that all that needs to happen is for something to happen for us to learn what life is about, then that is exactly what needs to happen. However, if we explore this deeper, and if we enter this concept of, or just asking ourselves, do we need to experience something before we experience something, and before we change? Do I need to, for example, have a near-death experience in order to start appreciating life? Do I need to have my heart broken before I learn to protect myself and to know how to protect my heart and to love rightly and justly? And this is something I invite everyone who listens or watches to this to ponder upon and think about. That we are so limited in our expression of our experience, and we live in a constant state of anxiety and fear most of the time, and afraid of loss, of death, whereas it is happening around us all the time. As Eckhart Tolle so beautifully said, the secret of life is to die before you die and realize that there is no death. What we do instead is we think of all the mechanisms to perpetuate being in life, ignoring and neglecting death as a crucial part of life. Because dying to every breathing moment is the eternity that people seek. Dying to this very second, to everything that is known, is death. To this body, to this breath, to this smell, to all that the senses can perceive. And simply letting it go and greeting the next moment, the next inhale, the next day, to die in the evening, as I like to say, and to be reborn in the morning and experience one's life over and over again. It is a highly complex task, and it is a highly complex activity. It requires no practice. It requires simple awareness and observation, because everything that we turn into a practice, we can become dependent on, and that can easily bypass our minds to perpetuate attachment and pleasure and holding on to something that would only be there for a certain and limited amount of time anyway, as will we. We shouldn't pretend that it is the opposite. We should embrace our life fully, immerse ourselves in the experience of our existence, feel and do and act, because perception is action. When we see something wrong, we do not have to stand up or shout or say that is wrong. We know something is wrong, and the action that follows should reflect that exact feeling. If this is wrong, then it is not for me. And then the action will simply unfold itself in the physical world and in the way that it's meant to be responded to by me and by my manifestation and expression of my own experience and intelligence. Because intelligence acts instantly. And with the absence of intelligence, we postpone and delay. When there is the absence of intelligence, we are not with our own experience, and we are not here. We simply do not allow anything else to take place but the thing we occupy our mind and consciousness with. Because the content of our consciousness is what creates reality. And if we have the same content in our consciousness, if I'm thinking about the same house I want to live in, the same woman I want to be with, which probably doesn't exist, it is just perpetuating the constant moving away from this moment, which is real, which can be felt, which can be experienced. Once again, this doesn't mean one shouldn't have plans, one shouldn't have ambitions, goals. They are necessary. There is a part of the mind, part of the brain that is necessary to sustain life. But we need to learn how to unplug from the autopilot and how to simply live intelligently, to feel every and each passing moment, to not be afraid of death, but to live death in every moment and to have it as an integral part of our experience and as important as life, because in a sense, and something beautiful that I read, which I dare to explore, hopefully together, is that death is a fact, yet death cannot be experienced. Because all we have as living organisms is the conceptualization of death. the concept of death. We see a body, it's not alive anymore, and then comes the story of what is and what happens next. And in that story we get stuck, and we fear and we dread, but we cannot experience someone else's death. The question is whether one can experience death whatsoever. But as I said, if one carries death and holds it, one can truly learn how to appreciate life and see it fully. I've come to an end of this episode, and I thank you everyone for joining in, listening, watching. I look forward to doing more of these. I love discussing life, and I enjoy discussing life and death and all its aspects. Stay tuned, tune in, and I will see you soon. Bye.